Some developments in a big story here. After more than a decade at the helm of prosecutions in Gauteng, Advocate Andrew Chauke has been suspended by President Cyril Ramaphosa, and it's pending an inquiry into his fitness to hold office. Now, Chauke's name has appeared in connection with stalled corruption cases and accusations of shielding political elites. And one of the questions being asked is whether this suspension and the inquiry that is to follow mark a turning point for the National Prosecuting Authority. Joining us now is investigative journalist Raisa Patha, who has closely followed Chauke's career and the broader collapse of prosecutorial independence during the Zuma years. Raisa, good morning, and thank you very much for being with us this morning. Appreciate your time. I want to go to one of the statements from the presidency around the suspension. The president believes Advocate Chauke's continued tenure as a DPP while facing serious accusations would negatively affect the reputation of the National Prosecuting Authority as a whole, confirming that he would not be able to fulfill his functions optimally while facing an inquiry. While you have been reporting on him as the Open Secrets for a few years now, your reaction to this development?
I mean, I think that this is a very profound development, Iman. Good morning to you and to everybody watching. This case has been sitting on Ramaphosa's desk for 2 years now. And so it's taken quite a length of time for Chauke to be suspended pending this inquiry. In 2023, the NDPP, Shamila Batoy, wrote to the president to say, please suspend Chauke pending his fitness to hold office, an inquiry into his fitness to hold office. And so really, it's about time this action was taken. He holds a very senior position as the leader of prosecutions, the prosecutorial boss in Gauteng. And there are a number of important cases that have been sitting on his desk, including the Prasa case, the state capture corruption case there, and several others. So this is good news.
You know, we often gloss over this piece. I mean, as you say, and I think it's important, there was that request from the national NDPP to ask the president to have him suspended. We see 2 years later when this has now finally happened. You've been writing about him. I think one of the initial reports date back to around 2022. What happens in the lapse of time with an individual as influential and as powerful in respect of, you know, real allegations, accusations around, you know, really important investigations? What does that do?
So I think the one thing is public trust, right? Many of us know that Chauke is a very powerful figure within the NPA and that he is overlooking all these important cases. I mean, you know, there was the 10-year delay into prosecuting former Gauteng MEC of Health, Brian Slongwa. And that case is really important. It deals with a 1.2 billion rand tender. And this was 1.2 billion rand in 2012. That's one of the cases. The other case is a Hawks officer, a senior official called Jan Mabula, who was accused of torturing a suspect in detention. Again, a really important case that saw significant delays. And in these cases, Chauke's decision-making was criticized. The NPA itself criticized the delay or the delays in the Mabula case. And then the NPA also criticized the delays and the decision to prosecute Johan Boysen, the former KZN Hawks chief, in 2012-2013. So these are significant cases that the NPA itself has highlighted in internal investigations. And so there's that erosion of public trust for the NPA and the presidency to finally hold Chauke to account. I think internally within the NPA, there's also a demoralization that happens, you know. In the state capture era, the NPA was certainly captured by figureheads who Zuma put into power as he had the power to do as president, including several NDPPs at the time, which many of us will know. And Chauke, you know, he was a figure that made decisions that helped political elites get away and not be investigated for serious allegations of wrongdoing. And so I think within the NPA, you know, the good prosecutors, the ones who want to do their work, want to see like the kind of figures who aided state capture through making certain enabling decisions. They want to see that era, you know, kind of leave the NPA and for the NPA to rebuild itself. So I think this is a very significant step, but it certainly should have happened a very long time ago.
Again, Raisa, let's go back to, and Open Secrets, as I say, has been involved in investigating, what happened and the impact of either cases not moving or gaining momentum as they should have in terms of prosecutions, convictions, and the like. And I think what's important for all of us at this particular moment in South Africa is to get the clarity on exactly, which cases, which individuals. When we talk about the protection of political elites, who are we talking about? Of course, there's further reading that we all have to do. People have to go back and look at some of those investigations, chapter and verse, that you have done to build that bigger understanding. But just to highlight some of those for our viewers this morning.
Yes, I think the biggest one was the Brian Hlongwa case. There's no doubt about it. I mean, like I said, it was a 1.2 billion rand tender. The case first landed on the NPA's desk from the SIU in 2011. And I think Hlongwa only appeared in courts, if I'm not mistaken, in 2021 or 2022. That's a 10-year delay into a billion rand fraudulent tender case where Brian Hlongwa and certain businessmen benefited, and the Gauteng Department of Health lost a ton of money and in turn wasn't able to provide public services as it should have. And we know that there's been significant ailments in the public health system. So I think that's one important case. I think also, the Prasa case would have also have been sitting on Chauke's desk. And that's a very key case because, as we know, as a result of corruption at Prasa, commuters weren't able to use trains for a very long time. It was unsafe, the system was unreliable. And I mean, we know that there were certain tenders that went through, for example, the Siangena tender, which was meant to provide security services. None of those services were provided. And in the end, to date, nobody has been held to account for those corruption allegations. And the Zondo Commission very firmly found, that there was a case to be made in Prasa, and there were several others too. But so far, there's been no movement on these cases. And now we as Open Secrets have, of course, started litigation to hold the NPA and the Hawks to account for that.
And that's what I wanted to ask, was whether in this moment we could see momentum then on some of the stalled cases that are big and have a big impact on, public trust and also the credibility of the NPA. So I wanted to squeeze that in, but I also, there's so much to do in just 2 minutes, and also reflecting on the fact, that he was appointed, as you said, by Jacob Zuma, remained in office for over a decade, and that long tenure, despite the concerns that you've already shared, had been placed on the table, really give a negative impression of institutional accountability within the prosecuting authority. But let's go to this. Advocate Chauke, in an interview with our station and Stephen Curtis last year, dismissed these allegations as unfairly sustainable, insisted that he had never once exceeded his powers, even in cases like former crime intelligence boss Richard Mdluli. So, again, it's to see whether this moment of this inquiry that is now going to be instituted, what the prospects are for real accountability and real transparency. What are your hopes for the measure now that the president has put in place, this inquiry into his fitness to hold office?
I think the inquiry, it can be quite successful. I mean, like I said, the NPA itself had internal investigations that were done, particularly involving the Boyson case, where they found that the prosecutors involved in that case had no evidence to prosecute and to get a successful prosecution of those police officers that they made those allegations against. So there is very strong evidence that the inquiry could use. I think, what is important is that, Chauke didn't just have a 10-year term in office. He was there since 2011. So they were talking about an over 20-year period, right? And I think that the inquiry, first of all, must be transparent. In our engagement with the presidency, they've refused to give us any information about possible suspension of Chauke when we asked in 2023. They refused to give us information about whether they had taken a decision to do the inquiry, as Batoyi had asked, because they said that, they can't engage with the public on this matter. And so I think for accountability to be successful, this process needs to be as transparent as possible. And that would be something to look out for, is whether there is transparency around it and the public is drawn into it and we are aware of what is transpiring.
Raisa, thanks for talking to us this morning. Raisa Patha is Open Secrets senior investigator, just responding and reflecting on the suspension now of the Gauteng Director of Public Prosecutions, and this is Advocate Andrew Chauke.